Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsport sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 74 of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I want to take a quick minute to tell you some more about AMSOIL. I'm sure you've heard about them. They are one of the most amazing, prolific motorsports companies. They're all over the place. They're sponsoring a lot of events, and they make motorsports better overall. One thing I want to tell you about, though, is my personal connection to the brand. Ever since I was a kid, I've been using AMSOIL products, and my dad has actually been an AMSOIL dealer, and it's just something I've trusted. So one of the things that I've always thought stood out with AMSOIL was their comfort level with sharing like data and analytics around how their products perform. Like, I know for some of their oils, they'll put right down at like 25,000 miles. That's a huge thing to say, and they back it up. So I think that's pretty important from any brand out there. If you can put the information out there and like people can check you on it, I mean, that's phenomenal. So that's one of the great reasons that I love working with AMSOIL. If you look at the way that their business is set up and what they're trying to accomplish in motorsports, it lines up very closely with what this podcast is trying to accomplish. So our vision is this. Regardless of if you are a supercross racer, a desert UTV racer, a backcountry snowmobile rider, drifter, ATV drag racer, whatever it is, our vision is that you can learn how to better market yourself and drive more value for your sponsors. In other words, we are your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Now, our featured guest today is freestyle MX star Brett Q. And I also want to drop a quick reminder that our last episode, 73, featured legendary Blair Morgan. So please go back, check that one out. It was awesome. Now, before we get into the interview with Brett, I have a few more things to cover with you. I also want to get your feedback. So head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. If you do that, that is one of the biggest ways that you can contribute to the growth of this show, because every time you leave a rating and review on iTunes, it increases the exposure level for the show. Also, subscribe. It's the best way to ensure that you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. Next up, we actually have sprint car driver Chad Baseflug, and he's also sponsored by AMSOIL. Now, this episode was also brought to you by Solderweld, who produces game-changing metal bonding technology, TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship, Bold Racing and Suspension, they're a family race team and custom suspension experts, Armor Coat, they make products to simplify your cleanup process, Crash Addict Industries, they produce extreme metal fab and safety products. And I also want to take this minute to give a quick shout out to some of our other product partners, including MBRP, HMK, Studboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. Now, the structure of this podcast is set up like a race. We will begin with the qualifier, which is the basic intro. In Heat 1, we'll dive into Brett's background. In Heat 2, we'll discuss sponsorship, tactics, and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line. And that's where we'll close things out. We'll get some final tips from Brett, and then we're going to figure out how to get a hold of him. Without further ado, let's hop in. All right, well, welcome everybody to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. My name is Josh Weesey, and today I'm joined by Brett Q. So, Brett, why don't you fill in the gaps for that intro and tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Man, I am just a big dork. I'm a big dork from Oklahoma. I happen to ride dirt bikes decent, but I've honestly got my hands in plenty of different stuff other than dirt bikes. I don't get to ride every day like people kind of think so, but honestly, I do all kinds of construction work. My dad has always built swimming pools as I was growing up, so I didn't roll completely on motorcycles. But I just got done building a patio for a guy, and I'm doing a wall next week. I'm all over the place, so I'm not necessarily on my bike all the time, unfortunately. But I ride dirt bikes and try to do as much as possible. I love it, and that's the reason that I'm still doing it. If I wasn't having fun, I don't really think that I would be on the bike or want to be on it at all. So I always was taught growing up that that was that was the main thing. If you're not having fun, don't do it. So that's I think that's why I kind of turned out the way I did. So my dad did a really good job of teaching me that. But I do events such as I've done X Games, I do Monster Cup, a SWIP. I've done the snow bike series this year. I do a little bit of everything, honestly. I just try to, like I've said, keep it fun. So that's my goal.
That's awesome. And I'm just a dork from Michigan, and I grew up doing lawn care and like landscaping and stuff. So I can make a deal for you. If you come up here and put in like, I don't know, some awesome patio or something, I will go to Oklahoma and I'll like cut your grass. We can
that's
do
perfect.
that trade. Yeah. You'll have to cover the cost and stuff for like the materials and all that. And actually when I go down there, you're probably gonna have to cover the cost for, the tractor and the fuel, but I will totally cut your grass and it'll look okay.
Well, you see, the problem is whenever I was growing up, my mom actually did a swimming pool maintenance company. So she would be the one cleaning the pools and fixing everything up, pumps and all that stuff. So I would help her out a little bit. And the lawn mowing guys were just the enemy almost, like they would just blow their lawn clippings all in the pool right after I got done cleaning them. And I was like, man, is that for real? Is this really necessary? Couldn't you have come like you said you were going to, like 2 hours ago, and then I come clean up whenever you're done? Just is a mess. But
oh man,
I
got one other quick story, man. Just going back to lawn care days, and I totally did not mean to do this. I mean, I'm like 13, 14 years old, and I'm cutting this one lady. Bless her heart, she had this like a bird fountain, and every now and then I just accidentally get grass on it, and I don't know how it happened. I didn't mean to, but I'd get grass in this little fountain, and she used to come and she'd get so mad at me, and she'd come out and be like, I gotta clean this with a stiff brush, and that's what she always kept saying, with a stiff brush. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I can't, I have to get that grass there, and I don't know how to do it any other way. But either way, I got yelled at, and it was okay. I think I did that lawn for like 10 years too. I got yelled at a lot at that place.
Hey, welcome to the club. I get yelled at just about every day by somebody for something, depending on what it is and what the day is. So
right.
That's right. I thought you were gonna say you drove the mower into the pool or something, and I was gonna be really pumped. I was gonna say, man, I've never seen that before. That's impressive.
Well, that I have not done that. Now, if we want to talk about some mishaps, though, my brother, who also was in the family business for a long time, he almost rolled his the tractor into the lake. It got really, really close, but it didn't quite go in. Honestly, I could probably do an entire series on just like lawn mowing mishaps and craziness.
Yeah, exactly. That might be fun. I'll listen.
That might have to be one I put on the list. Well, hey man, I want to dive deeper into your background next, though. I want to understand like your journey. How'd you first get into motorsports, and like how did you get from that point to where you're at today?
Well, whenever I was really young, my dad started riding. He was a water skier before that. He kind of did the water ski jumping thing, like at a local level. Obviously, he wasn't really that great at it. But once I was born, I was his first boy. I have two older sisters, and then once I was born, he was like, "Man, I've always wanted a dirt bike, and never really had one." He had ridden a little bit, but not really had his own bikes. And so he, whenever I was born, he got his own bike, and I kind of grew up around it. I loved it whenever I was little. Like, I remember being 4 or 5 years old. It was 1990 probably. And I could tell you that was when the numbers used to change every single year for what place you got in the series last year. And I could tell you number 1 through 100 every single year. I would be 7 years old, maybe 93 or something. And you would say, hey, who was number 64 in 1990? And I was like, oh, Barry Carson or whatever, And I knew. So I loved it, but I didn't want to ride. Like, I always had an opportunity to have my own bike. He always wanted me to ride, but I just was too scared, I guess. I was nervous, and I really thought I wasn't scared of necessarily getting hurt or crashing or anything like that, but I just didn't want to get on it and not be good at it, And I know that sounds stupid, and like, yeah, well, you got to get on it and ride it and practice before you get good at it. So you can't just jump on and be good. But I I guess I just didn't want to get on and be horrible. So I don't know what happened, but whenever I turned 10, or I was about 10 years old, then I went to an arena cross, back the PJ1, like Denny Stevenson, Buddy Antonez days. And, I watched the arena cross, and I told my dad on the way home, I was like, yeah, I want a bike now. And he was like, are you serious? He was like, all right, let's go do it. And so the next day, a guy that we went to the arena cross with had like a 1976 XL or XR. I don't even know what they called them back then, but it was a 75. And he gave it to me. And I was like, sweet. So I went out the next day, and I went riding for the first time. And by the end of the day, I thought I was getting pretty good, So my dad, he had a pretty cool little track that he had built. And I wasn't riding the track really. I'd been riding a little bit around just the pits and the area all day. And I was just hauling down this little lease road. And I just thought I was going so good, and I thought I was the baddest motorcycle rider ever. And I hit this soft dirt, and I washed out and ate it so hard. And it was the first time I remember seeing like ground, sky, ground, sky, ground, sky.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those, You only really understand that if you've ridden. But it was the first time I'd done that, and I was like, what just happened, And I got up, and my metal fender was ripped off, and I was so bummed. I was like, man, this is done. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I don't know how I'm going to explain this thing. And my dad came back over, and he didn't really care, and he made sure I was all right, and we went down the road. But that was the only day I rode that bike. I just bought a brand new, he went and bought me a brand new 1996 XR80 after that the next day. And so I moved up in the world 20 years, and I definitely got a little bit better. Once that XR80 came about, I had a lot of fun on that thing. And then I started jumping it. And once I started getting bigger jumps, like the chain would come off every single time. I would land off a jump and the chain would come off, and I'd have to stop and put it back on every time. So that bike lasted a couple of years, but after that I kind of moved on to real bikes such as like a CR80 and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of why I started, and I just watched him do it. And even he was really good friends with Guy Cooper back in the day whenever Guy was riding Supercross and stuff. And so I would go over to Guy's house and watch him, and I was like, man, that's unreal. I want to do that so bad. I just got to figure out how. But so yeah, that was the start.
Oh, that's cool, man. So when did you get into, I don't know, I guess like the spotlight? What was your first step there?
Well, I rode quite a while and did all the amateur stuff. I did World Minis, Loretta's, Ponca. I mean, every amateur national besides Minios. I never did that one. But I did all that stuff, and I always had fun doing it, but I'm going to sound horrible saying this, but I never trained a day in my life. I still haven't. I've never been into the gym. I wouldn't know only reason I would know what to do is because I've watched Trey and Jimmy and all those guys do it over the years. But if not for that, I wouldn't even know where to start in the gym. But I've never done it myself. So
there's at least 10 people right now who are listening who just either punch their steering wheel if they're in the car, or it's funny though that you say that too, because I was doing some research on you, and I found some article from 2013, and it was something like Brett Q has such this raw talent, and now I understand raw talent.
That's
to train.
That's why I say it.
Got on a dirt bike and I just ride it.
Exactly. That's how it goes. But I didn't want to burn myself out in the gym. I just had to do landscaping work and build swimming pools to build my muscles up.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be doing the treadmill. But I don't even remember what you asked. What were we talking
let's
about?
see. So you were coming out of Loretta's and the mini amateur series.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did all the amateur nationals, and I always, like I said, I had fun doing it, and that's why I did it. I think Loretta's the first year I ever went. I think I rode C class, and I crashed every single moto, and I got 7th overall, I think. But I was like, man, that was cool. I want to do that again, And I never top 10 Loretta's again. I rode it in C class, B class, A class, plus 25, 4-stroke, all that. I actually rode plus 25 the year that Carmichael was there, and he ended up lapping me, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I remember, this was totally changing the subject, but I remember as like it was probably 3 or 4 laps from the end, and he was cruising out by himself. You know, he was in front, and I was like, man, he's about to lap me. This is pretty sweet, actually. And I started like slowing down, and I was trying to cross the finish line at the same time as him. That way, whenever he would cross the finish line, I could go with my arms up like I had just beat him, you know. And it worked out decent, but not quite as much as in my head. It sounded a lot better than it looked. But there was some pictures of it, and it was pretty funny. Might have to post a Throwback Thursday one day. But yeah, so I rode those races and always rode for fun with my buddies at home. And like I said, never took it too seriously. And really, from the time I learned how to whip and the time I learned that whole side of motocross, I was like, that's my thing. You know, I never really wanted or thought that I had a chance at doing anything like that. But I remember whenever X Games first had Best Whip, I was like, man, that's a dream right there. That's just that's something that is untouchable, out of my league, out of my range. Like, there's no way I could ever do that. And it was in, I think, 2007 or 2008. And then a few years went by, and I still kind of always thought the same thing, you know. And then I met my buddy Dayton, who Dayton is the guy that does all my film stuff and does all the videos that you've probably seen. Our dads used to race together back in the day, but we never really knew each other. We both lived in Oklahoma, but we never really had much interaction or any history. And he moved to Colorado, went to school for video and film stuff. And he, one weekend, or I think it was Thanksgiving, he was coming back one year in 2012, I believe, 11 or 12. And he called me and he was like, hey, I've been making videos. He was like, I really want to make a video of you. And I was like, well, I've never really done that before. You know, like I'd done a lot of photo stuff in the past. I'd worked for Amateur MX magazine and a few different companies that we had done a lot of photos, but video and photos is 2 totally different types of riding. So I was like, yeah, let's try it. You know, like I would like to. I'd like to see what that's all about. So his first video was with me, and we kind of grew from there. And we then on spring break he came back and did another video. And after that, I remember him talking to me, and he goes, man, what's something you've always wanted to do? Like, I like making these videos with you, but we need to make something bigger. We need to do something more than this. And I was like, well, you know, I always really wanted to get into X Games, but we all know that's not happening. And he was like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Let's do it. That's not going to happen. And he said, well, let's just make a series, the Road to X Games, we can call it. And I'll film you, and we talk about how you want to go to X Games and this and that. And I was like, well, all right. Like, I told him if I could get 365 likes on my post on Facebook about that, then I would do it. I'd never had more than like 10 likes on anything in my life. And so I posted on Facebook, and within an hour, I got 365 likes. And like I said, I'd never got that many likes on anything. I'd never got like 10 people liking my stuff. But I saw who it was and the names of the people that would comment on it and the people that would that liked it. And I was like, man, these people really believe that I got this, you know? And so I was in. After that, I said, oh, I guess I got to do what I said. I got to live up to my word. So it wasn't long after that we were making our first Road to X Games video. And so that was kind of when it started, really. It was the reason that I even did that. It was a normal day riding. I was down in Amarillo, Texas riding. And there was this jump that it was really, really windy. It was a big step up. It was a triple step up that was huge. It was probably like 120 feet, maybe. I don't even know how big it was, but it was big. A lot of air. And it was like a straight up crosswind on this jump. And the only way I could go without crashing is I had to throw the bike as hard as I could to the left and just try not to crash, pretty much. Try to hope it didn't blow me back too far where I would land fine. Because I wanted to jump the jump. I'd never been to this track before, and I really wanted to jump this thing. So I was like, well, I guess I got to do it. So I was just throwing it as hard as I could, and then the wind would blow me back straight, and it was all good. But there was somebody there taking photos, and they got a photo of it, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. That's probably the coolest picture I've ever had of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, after that, I was like, man, this is motivation. So I told everybody I wanted to try to get into X Games, and we started making videos. We made the first one kind of, it was not really much riding in it. Dayton and I drove down to Texas to ride a little bit. He used some old clips of some whips I had and stuff, and he did an interview while we were driving down the road, and that was it. And so I did quite a bit of more riding, whatever, the normal thing in between there, but I tried to focus a little bit more on whips. And Instagram wasn't too old back then, and out of nowhere, Twitch commented on one of my posts. You know, I'd never talked to Twitch in my life, never seen anything, or I'd seen him, but he'd never seen me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, dude, I'm liking your style. Your whips are sick. I'm a fan, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, Twitch just said that to me. This dude's won X Games the past few years, you know? I was so pumped. And so I messaged him on there after that, and I was like, man, that would be the coolest thing ever if I ever came out to California, if I could ride with you. Like, is that possible? And he was like, oh, dude, yeah, whenever you want. Here's my number. Call me up. Let me know. You could just come riding. And I was like, in shock.
Okay.
I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was so pumped. I never thought I would be a Twitch fan. I honestly, like, I had just, by looking at him from an outsider's point of view and the way he acts and the way he talks, I was like, I'm probably not going to be a fan. But after getting to know him a little bit better, man, he is such a good dude. And so I went there and we filmed the second Road to X Games episode. We went to Ronnie Feist's house for a couple of days, and actually that whole time, I don't know how much I'm supposed to get into all this because I could talk forever probably.
You're good, man. Keep it going.
So the first time I went out there to California, I rode for a couple of days on like Milestone and a couple other tracks, but I'd been trying to get a hold of Twitch the whole time. I was like, man, like let's go riding. And he was like, man, I've been sick all week, you know, like I can't ride and whatever. And I was like, man, I think he's just dodging me. He didn't really think I'd come out here. And then now he's like, oh man, I can't ride. Sorry. And so I had 2 days left out there, and I was like, man, I'm going to be going home and not riding with him. That sucks. And so he was like, man, I can't ride today, but I got Ronnie Feist. He said you could come ride with him. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool, you know? And so he was like, but maybe tomorrow I can ride with you. So I went and rode with Ronnie that day, and we had so much fun. It was awesome. And the next morning he was like, yeah, I'm good. Let's go ride. And so we went to Twitch's place and got to ride with him. And man, that was like, I'll never forget that, you know? And I think it was around that point where, I mean, I got a little bit of social media love from him. And not only that, but just the whole thing that we were doing, people really supported because they saw that I'm just a normal guy, you know, like I'm nothing special. I just can whip a dirt bike a little bit and people like it and they can relate. So I think that helped me out big time. But after that, it built plenty of steam, and I did Road to X Games episodes with Kevin Windham, who I never thought I'd get to meet in my entire life. And I had always been such a huge fan of Kevin. And my buddy Chris, who passed away, he worked for Dirtworks. He was the one that got me and Kevin hooked up in the first place. And after that, we've become really good friends, and that's just something that I never thought I'd be able to say. So it's crazy the place where the road leads you, but I couldn't be happier with the way things have turned out. So,
you know, one thing I want to pull out from that story, and it relates back to an interview I did a couple episodes ago with Kyle Pauline, and he's a snowcross racer, and basically he made a video of like a workout training 3-month deal that he did. He moved to a different city, did this video to prep for snowcross, and he posted that, and basically not knowing that it was gonna change his career, you know, he posted it. Levi LaValle ended up seeing that video, thought it was pretty cool, reached out to him, and you know, he's been racing for Team LaValle for years now. It completely altered his career path and like set him on this whole new trajectory, and it was all because he decided to do some like cool video that nobody else had done before. So, I mean, that's kind of what you did, not knowing it at the time, too. I think that's the most exciting thing is you don't know at the time. So people could be making content right now, and they have no idea what that might do for, a year down the road.
Exactly. I mean, I just thought I was going to ride with some people I looked up to, but then it turned into a little something better. So
That's cool,
I'm pumped on it. So
that's cool, man. Well, let's go to today. So, like, what are some of the things you're currently working on? Things that you're fired up about? Your current adventures.
Well, I've been working a lot outside of the industry just recently, but in the industry, I would say what I'm most excited about is our 365MX gear brand. That's something that Dayton and myself have been working on. Dayton, the same guy that did the videos for me and that still does them. It's really cool that we've been able to work together. We hate each other most of the time. We can't stand each other, but we work together pretty well. We're completely different, but it balances each other out. So he's been doing a lot of the design work and a lot of the behind the scenes part for the gear. And I've been doing obviously a lot of the trying to get it to the public, and trying to let people know what's going on with it and what we're doing next. So it's been something that's been pretty important to us, and something that I feel like we're doing a pretty good job at for just being a couple guys and really not knowing what we're doing. So
yeah.
we're working on that. So not to skip ahead a little bit, but that's one thing that is really cool about this, because I've had so many years of dealing with sponsors and with people helping me out, that now getting to see the other side of it, I have a whole new appreciation for how things should work, and how and what you should look for on each side, and what you kind of want to do as a sponsor of a rider. So I'm pretty thankful to be able to see that from both ways.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I especially think it's critical for people. If you're listening right now and you're 18, there is some point where you're not going to be able to race or do the things that you're doing now, no matter what. Now, you might be able to extend that into some later years, or you might be able to switch into, a trophy truck or UTV, like pull the Jeremy McGrath and just keep going. But at some point, you might have to do something else. And I think it's pretty cool that where people can take the things they've learned in the industry and then flip that into another type of business, or whatever it may be. I know Ricky Carmichael, right? He's got like a race program and a training program, and there's just so many cool things that you can do based off of what you learned during your whole racing career. So I love that, man, and especially when it comes to like branding and stuff. I mean, obviously I get pretty excited about that stuff. So yeah, I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think kind of the way or the reason that I've turned out like this is because I didn't start riding until I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't on track, or basically I had very little shot at being the next Dungy or whatever, Carmichael.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, I was taught to keep it fun. And so that's why I did what I did. And that's why I learned how to whip it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason that I've kind of turned out how I have. And like you said, it's very important to be able to do that. So,
mm-hmm. Well, right now, I mean, who are some of your current sponsors or partners that you work with? I mean, who are the people that you focus on from a brand perspective?
Well, obviously 365MX,
right.
the gear line that we're doing. That's a huge thing. Honda actually stepped up a couple years ago and really started helping me out. Like, I've ridden Honda so long, and I've been back and forth on other bikes over the years, but every time I went and got a different bike, it didn't take long before I went back home. I was back on my Honda. And whenever, I think it was probably 2016, Honda called me, and I was out riding that day, and I had a voicemail on my phone. Hey, this is Jason from American Honda. I just wanted to talk to you and give me a call back. And I was like, my first thought was, I screwed something up. Like, I did something really bad. Like, Honda's mad at me. I don't know what I did, but this is not good. But I called him back, and he said, man, I've really been watching what you do, and I think it's awesome. And I was like, what? Really? I was like, that's pretty cool, And he said, yeah, we got a new bike coming out this year, and I want to have you come to the intro, and I want you to be one of the main people to do this thing. And I was just so confused. I was like, why would he pick me? It didn't make any sense to me. But I was so pumped, and of course I said yes. So it kind of went from there. But Honda helped me out big time. Honda of Stillwater, if there's anything that I get from Honda, basically it comes through Honda of Stillwater, more or less.
Okay.
And those guys through the years have always been really good to me. John's helped me out for many years. So he's definitely they make all my graphics. They do such a good job. So does my helmets, 100%. The guys there that own that thing used to be with One Industries and a couple other brands, and they've helped me for knee problems over the years. And I'm very, very pumped that I'm able to put my knees in something like that.
So I'm actually going to break into the show for a minute and just explain something that you're not hearing, but it definitely happened. This show, we had so many technical difficulties. It was absolute terror. I think my software crashed like 3 or 4 times. His phone was cutting out because of poor service. But he hung in there with me, and then I just wanted to keep this part of the episode in because he just said something that was, in my opinion, really positive and made me feel better about the way the recording was going. So I kept this next part in just so you could kind of see a little bit of his personality and my personality after we'd run into these challenges. So you'll hear this little weird part that doesn't make sense, and then we'll get back into the show. Man, this is like technology is against you and I. Like it is saying, you know what? I'm gonna put this mountain in front of you, and you guys got to climb this mountain, and I'm not gonna let up on you. That's what technology is doing to us right now.
As long as we get to throw a whip off that mountain, it don't matter.
Right.
It's all good.
There it
so
is.
we're all good. I'm sorry. I'm in a bad area of Oklahoma that just really doesn't have good service. So I'm really sorry, but I'm sitting in the same spot trying to tilt my head in the right direction that it works well.
Yeah.
But can't always promise that. So after that, I was going with CTI. Their knee braces are so good. I just had a few knee problems over the years, and then I got myself into those things, and I couldn't be happier. Think Technology, their seats are super good, awesome. Factory Honda uses them. DVS, Dano has always helped me out with shoes. I know Dano's not there anymore, but he's still my DVS guy. He's what I consider DVS. Ride365.com, which I might get a little bit too far into this, but there's Ride365.com, which is basically an online parts and accessory store. And then there's 365MX, which is our gear line. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand that they're different and that they are completely separate companies. But Ride365.com has 365 gear, but they also have box gear, everything you can imagine. Anything for the bike, parts, accessories, gear, anything is on Ride365.com. But 365MX, our gear line, is separate. Mm-hmm. So I won't get too far into that. Moto stuff, their brakes are so good. Everybody always asks me, like, oh, those nose wheelies, how do you do that? It's those brakes. That's almost like cheating. I remember Travis and I had a little nose wheelie off basically at Kevin's last year, and we were landing this jump in a nose wheelie, and I just kept doing it over and over, and he never did get it. And he was just so bummed out that he couldn't do it. And he went and bought a Moto Stuff brake at full retail after that. He didn't even ask for a discount. He just bought it. And I don't know. It was pretty funny, too, because Travis doesn't realize that he taught me that. He did that many years ago and did it over some jumps when he was riding with us. And he probably didn't even remember he was riding with me at the time because I was so little and so bad at riding. But he was landing this jump in a nose wheelie, and I really wanted to do that. I was like, man, Travis did that. I can do this, and that's kind of why it happened. So it was cool to be able to do that with him afterwards. So anyways, we're going to go on. Moto stuff. their brakes are really awesome. SMF has helped me out with pipes. They're so good. I mean, couldn't ask for more with those guys. Alpine Stars, the boots are awesome. I mean, if there's anything that I feel like with gear that's just the most important, it's boots, because I've and obviously a helmet too, but I've gone out and just messed around in my tennis shoes and just hitting these little bitty hits here or there, like little jumps. You don't realize how hard it is on your ankles until you don't have the support that the Alpine Stars give you. They're good. Merge Racing, suspension's awesome. He's a local guy, but super, super good stuff. Really smart man. Jim's awesome. The Chirby's, Works Connection, they've helped me out for probably, since like 2005, so over 10 years, 13, 14 years. ODI, bars and the grips, I couldn't ask for more. So that's about all. But those people have all been really loyal to me, and they also, it's cool that I feel like they all really, they have faith in what I'm doing. They trust what I do, because not one of those people have made me sign a contract. I haven't signed anything since probably 2006. It's been a long time. And basically, besides a couple different things, that's all I've been running. It's the same stuff. I just am loyal to the people that have been good to me, and I try to keep it that way. So that's always a really important thing.
Yeah, and I keep emphasizing this on the show, and I'm going to keep doing it until someone tells me to stop, but it is really critical to me that you highlighted people's names in that, because a lot of people say, well, Honda or 100% or whatever, and they assume that, like, I don't know, people just say the company, like, yeah, they support me, but really there's people inside that company that are really driving that relationship and really making the decisions about you. And I always like it when people go through like some of the personal relationships that they have with those folks and how they've connected with it, because that's really what it's all about. It comes down to those personal relationships.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, every one of those companies I named, I could tell you who I deal with and who has really been there for me. But it's hard a lot of the times, because those people they're here today, gone tomorrow. Like, there's a lot of people in the industry that don't keep the same job. Let's say they'll go over to another company that they're going to be doing the same thing. And I feel like not only could I name those people that are there now, but I could tell you my first No Fear guy back in 2004, whenever I was wearing No Fear, his name was David. He was so awesome. It was the first time I ever remember getting anything for free, anything given to me. And I mean, I was like, I couldn't even believe my eyes. I was so pumped. But David was such a good dude, and he worked for a couple companies afterwards, and we always kept a relationship even after. And even there's been a couple guys that, like Blake, he used to work for Alpine Stars, and Jesse, they used to work for Alpine Star, and they've gone to different things now, and Jesse's actually worked for Troy Lee KTM. But I still keep in touch with him, it's not necessarily that they're the guy that's going to give me something. Like, I got to keep friends with them. It's like, no, he's a friend, he's somebody that's there for you. So that's more of the attitude you have to have towards it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was cool, man. Good intro, good background. What I want to do next, though, is take a quick minute to thank the sponsors for this show, and then we'll hop into Heat 2. Have you ever been out on the trail or at the track or in the middle of the desert and something breaks? Well, of course you have. We've all been there. But a lot of people at that point, they reach into their trusty toolbox for the duct tape or the zip ties or wrenches to fix their machine. However, there's a feeling that you get when you realize you need more than just duct tape to fix that rock chip in your radiator. That's a horrible, horrible feeling to have. And that's why I'm going to tell you next about Solderweld's metal bonding products, specifically alloy Sol. So this product gives you a longer term fix than JB Weld, which is just going to get you back to the trailer or back to the pits. With basically the assistance of MAP gas or propane torch, you can quickly and easily repair an oil cooler, radiator, AC line, or any crack or hole in aluminum. And better yet, alloy soil flux is the only flux in industry that cleans and decontaminates the dirty and greasy surface for you. So you don't even have to worry about that part. The alloy soil rods are actually capable of a 30,000 psi fix, and they're stronger than even the parent metal, and they're built to last the lifetime of the part. So don't let a simple radiator leak leave you out of the race or broken down in the trail. Bring along some alloy soil aluminum alloy repair rod and flux from Solder Weld. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important, if you're ready for that next level of performance, to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors, and on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. It's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next, is how topthepodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to topthepodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to topthepodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly, so check it out. I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't stand cleaning the mud, filth, grime, goo, garbage off my machines after I go for a ride. It's just frustrating. It takes a lot of time. That's why I'm going to talk to you about Armor Coat next. Armor Coat is designed to help prevent mud, clay, ice, and other grime from sticking to your machine. It makes the cleanup quick and easy. It makes the machine actually look fantastic, and beyond that, it smells phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it, like bubble gum or something like that. It smells great. If you want to know more about Armor Coat, visit armorcoatproducts.com, and you will see their entire product line, all the offerings. Armor Coat is also working on some new stuff. They're soon going to release a solution made for coating the helmet and visor, and also one for wheels to help prevent mud buildup for high temp areas. So make your move now. Go to armorcoatproducts.com. Make a decision that's going to allow you to shorten the amount of time that you spend cleaning so that you can increase the amount of time that you spend riding and racing. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're in Heat 2. That's where we dive into some of the tactics and strategies, the tips, the tricks, all that fun stuff with sponsorship. So right before we took the break, Brett, you walked us through some of your current partners, your sponsors that have been supporting you over the years. And you actually even alluded to a couple of connection points, like how people reached out to you and things like that. But what I want to know now is how some of those relationships started forming. I think that's one of the most critical things, is like making that connection, whether they reach out to you or you reach out to them, or you run into somebody at an event on accident, whatever it is. So I kind of want to walk through maybe one or two examples of that.
Man, yeah. I just first off, anytime you're in that environment, if you're at a race or you're around somebody that has something to do with the sport, you always want to keep your eyes open and kind of figure out who everybody is. You don't want to just like let something blow over your head. It could be a really good opportunity. I remember I didn't have any help with boots, and this was just a couple of years ago, and I was at St. Louis watching the Supercross, and I was actually going up the escalator or something like that, and the guy that I was talking about, Blake from Alpine Star, he was riding the escalator up, and I started talking with him a little bit, and we kind of got to chatting, and by the end of the time, like, we were just friends. It was all good, and then it went from there, and I started wearing their boots, and he's still my friend. He doesn't work for anybody in the industry anymore, and we're still buddies. But that's how that one started. It's just, you just never know when something like that's when it's gonna come about. And not only do you need to keep your ears and eyes open whenever you're in that situation, but you've got to keep a positive attitude. I mean, I try to do that all the time anyways, but you really gotta attract people with your personality and just the way that you look at things, and not just be some guy out there cussing and just bad mouthing somebody over and over. It's like, it just gets you nowhere, and it is really no good for anything. So I've always tried to do my best to be a positive person that people want to be around.
So yeah, that's awesome. I gotta dive deeper into this story though, man. Like, escalator to what that was when Alpine Stars actually ended up sponsoring you for your boots, was shortly after that. Okay,
so actually,
that's wild.
I was hold on. I messed up that story though. The Alpine Star guy then that I met on the the escalator wasn't Blake. It was Jeff. His name was Jeff Wiener, and he actually works for a Honda now, which is kind of ironic. But Jeff didn't work for Alpine Star very long after that. Like, he worked there for probably, I don't know, a few weeks or a month after that. And I was like, oh man, my Alpine Star deal's gone, and I didn't think anything else about it. I was like, well, at least I got a set of boots that'll last me a couple of years. It's fine. And I was at Loretta's that year helping my buddy Max Miller. He's a kid that rides Super Mini class, or did ride Super Mini. He was a fast upcoming kid. And I was just sitting in the creek, and I just started talking to this guy, and it wasn't really a big deal. And it turns out he's the new Alpine Star guy, and I had no idea. He didn't have any gear on, nothing. He had a swimsuit on, and the 50 classes were out there, and he just happened to be sitting in the creek enjoying the cool water, and turns out he's one of my good friends now. So that was Blake. That was when I met him. Okay. Sorry, Blake, if you're listening.
That's wild though. It's important, I guess, to remember to just stay on your game, and like almost every person that you interact with, especially if you're in some sort of race event or if you're at a trade show or something. I mean, anybody there could be your next step to something. I mean, I think I've shared this example on here before, but I went to the Vegas to Reno Desert Race in August of 2017, and I was like super excited to go and do interviews with people because everybody's there. Like, I mean, BF Goodrich is there, and like Fox is there, and they're all there. So I'm like, I'm gonna be able to talk to sponsors, get a ton of information. Well, I saw this company. It was a smaller booth, and I didn't know hardly anything about it. I mean, I'd seen them around. That was Solder Weld, and I was like, man, these guys look pretty cool. I was like, the product looks pretty cool. I said, let me just go see. I want to hear their story. So I went and said, hey, do you got a minute to like just talk a little bit about what you look for in sponsors, sponsored riders, and I talked to one of them there. His name was Zeke, and he did great. I think it was like a 3-4 minute interview. And when I published the episode, the owner of that, Lance Robinson, he reached out to me. I don't know, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks later, and he was like, dude, I want to know more about what you're doing. I like this. And he's been sponsoring a show for I don't know how many months now.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know that was going to happen. And I like this show. Like to run a podcast, there is some effort that goes into it, and it does need some help, man. And like he stepped in, and he's been making it happen. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like you said, you just never know. You never know who and where you're going to run into somebody like that, and you just got to be on your game for sure.
I mean, you've been doing this for a while now. What about a time when things maybe didn't go that great with a sponsor? I'm always curious to hear those stories because they happen, and people got to know what to do if it does happen. Have you run into that?
I was really trying to think about that before you called, and I honestly can't really think of one single time that something hasn't. Like, of course, there's times whenever it's like there's a new person, you got to get to know them, whatever. But there's not really been a time where I haven't got along with somebody that's a sponsor. It's always been pretty good. I haven't really switched a lot of brands, so I don't really have any of those stories where I had to break the news to somebody that I'm not going to be with them anymore. Which, by the way, if you are going to do that, definitely make sure to talk to both parties involved, even if it's not going to influence the decision on where you go. It's always better to, instead of them finding out whenever they see a picture or they see something else or they don't hear from you, it's always better to get an honest, like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to end up doing this now. It's something that it's just more appreciated on both ends, I think. So, but no, I unfortunately, I mean, I guess not really, unfortunately. I guess that's a good thing. I've never had that happen.
It is a good thing.
Yeah, I really don't. I can't recall a time whenever I haven't got along with a sponsor too well. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm short on that one.
Well, I'm gonna dig in a different way then. Has there been a time when you tried to get a sponsor on board and it didn't pan out, or they didn't get back with you, or it went nowhere?
Oh, of course, that happens all the time.
All right, let's hear some of that maybe. Because I think sometimes people look at the folks who have done well and they're like, oh, well, they've always done well. Like, that was been easy for them. So let's hear maybe some times when you tried and it just didn't work.
Well, I think there's just about every way, in the gear side and the boots and the bike parts, it doesn't matter what it is. There's been a time when I was like, man, I would love to be sponsored by them. And it never worked out. But, just recently, like, who doesn't want to be a Red Bull guy, I mean, I would be a Monster guy too if it made sense, but I like the Red Bull, just the surrounding and the enigma, I guess. Is that the right word that I'm thinking of?
I don't know. Hey, let's go with it. I don't know. It sounds good to me.
I like the atmosphere of the Red Bull thing, and like it's an elite group, and it's something that you're not going to see a Red Bull logo basically if you don't have a Red Bull deal they're just really good to their guys, and it's not like they just throw their logo on everybody to not throw any names out there, but just they don't just throw their logo on everybody, you know. So I feel like it would be super cool to be a Red Bull guy. I posted something just the other day. I was like, my buddy Phil is a trials bike rider, and he does backflips and all kinds of stuff. And I had a broken collarbone, and I was up there watching him ride, and he was doing a backflip over me, and I had the Red Bull can out, and I was holding it in front of me, or I was chugging it or something. And I was like, man, you guys think Red Bull should be a sponsor? And I posted on Instagram, and I was like, let's tag them and let's see if they want to work out a deal, you know. And like 600 people tagged them, and
wow.
I still haven't heard from Red Bull. So I don't really know when or if that's going to happen, but I'm not holding my breath. So, and actually it doesn't just happen with sponsorship deals. I remember pulling that card with, I've always been a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to get her attention. I've even photoshopped like my face on somebody's body that was holding their hand and all kinds of stuff like that. Like I'll put like a little heart. I'll do a heart with my hands, and then I'll put it over my chest, and then I'll put her face in it, and all kinds of stuff. But I did something one time that I was like, hey, tag Taylor Swift if you think that she should be into dirt bike riders. Like 2,000 people tagged her, and she never even liked it. She didn't even like it. I was like, man, I know she has like millions of followers, but surely she saw that.
Yeah.
At least one. She probably didn't even run her Instagram. But anyways, that's not a sponsor. It would be a sponsor if I had Taylor Swift as my wife, though.
Yeah.
We'd be talking serious sponsorship dollars, but that's neither here nor there. If I could pick Taylor Swift or Red Bull, I'd probably pick Red Bull.
Yeah. Well,
just saying.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad someone else likes Taylor Swift. You know, I went and saw her live when she was just getting started off. She came to my college, and like,
oh, that's awesome.
I mean, I can't.
That was your chance.
Yeah, the tickets were like dirt cheap, and I was at front row, and yeah, it was my wife.
Awesome.
At the time, she was my girlfriend, but my wife now was like, you need to go up there, like, go talk to her and, like, go try to, like, reach out. And I was like, no, I'm fine here. And she's like, go do it. And, yeah, either way, so I missed my chance.
That's awesome. Dang it, man. You could have hooked me up. You could have been my tie to Taylor. Dang it.
Well, you know one thing, man. That
I don't really know her number, but I would call her if I did.
Yeah, I do actually have her number, but I'm not going to share that right now. No, you know, one thing that I want to pull out of that you just said, too, that's an interesting tactic, like using your audience to help get attention. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I've heard that before, but I feel like I need to try it. Like, hey, tag such and such, sure. Like, let's make it happen. You know, I tried something, maybe I did try something like this before. I was wanting to get Travis Pastrana on this show, and I basically did this poll, like, who's the number one person that you'd want to have on the show? And, like, you know, Travis is no surprise. He was up there with, like, Ken Block. But I think Travis won out as the number one person. And I was like, all right, I started this, like, hashtag thing called, I don't know, Pursuit of Pastrana. And I had people tagging him and whatnot. And, well, nothing came of it. And then just randomly, I was talking to Jim Beaver, who kind of helps me out with this show. And he was like, oh, yeah, dude, I got Travis Pastrana coming out he'll be here at the Vegas Reno. If you just come by at like 10:30, I'll get you a couple minutes interview. And I was like, what? How did this happen? I was having this whole crazy campaign planned out, and I was ready to like dump some ad spend into it and make it that. And I just talked to Jim Beaver, and he just made it happen. So
that's pretty funny. It's the answer is usually like right in front of you, and you just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess now that I really kind of think about that, that's what we were doing with the Road to X Games thing. You know, like everything I did that year was hashtag Road to X Games, this and that. Like everybody that was involved in it was just like beating X Games door down basically. And even though it took 4 or 5 years or whatever it took to get into it, it worked eventually, but it just didn't happen right away. Mm-hmm. So you just got to be persistent, be annoying, I guess.
I would almost call this stuff viral marketing tactics. I mean, that seems like what it is.
Yeah.
And actually, didn't you work as like a marketing manager for a couple companies?
Yeah, actually, I worked. So after the Road to X Games deal, and I went to X Games that year, and I obviously wasn't invited. And on the way back home, I was driving back, and Dayton flew back to Denver where he was living at, and he was going to go get a job doing something that he completely hated, and go back to real life. Basically, is how we were looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he called me up, and I was in the middle of the desert, and he was like, "Hey, guess what?" He's like, "Motorsport.com called, and they saw our videos, and they want to hire me." And I was like, "Dude, that's awesome! You know, like Dayton got his chance. You know, he can go make videos for a company like that, and he was going to move to Oregon." And so he moved up there, and it took him a couple weeks, and he got to know everybody, and they ended up wanting to hire both of us to do it as a team. So I was the brand ambassador, was my job title, but I basically went and spread the good love of the company, and yeah, it definitely was really cool. It's probably one of the greatest things that I've got to do. Honestly, it was awesome.
Well, and the reason why I brought that up too is because a couple of the examples you've given already kind of links into like a natural thought process for engaging people on social media, because you get something viral, things change, and you have different ways of doing that stuff. And I remember I had Scott Sparrow on this show. He's a backcountry rider, and he does a Facebook Live video, and he was saying one of the things, like, if you want your audience to do something, you got to ask them. Like, if you don't ask them, they won't do it. So I liked how you gave a couple examples there of how you asked them to do stuff, whether it's tagging Taylor. I call her T now for short. We're pretty close, but or tagging Red Bull. I think it's really cool. Even if it didn't work out in the long run, I think it's a really cool idea, and I hope some other people try that after listening to this as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just got to be really careful how you do it, and you can't come off wrong. You know, like, I know that sounds really vague, but you just have to be really careful on your outlook and your presentation for that sort of thing. Like, I probably wouldn't have just gone on there and posted a picture of my bike and be like, "Oh, this bike would look better with a Red Bull sticker on it. Come on." Like, Red Bull sponsor me, you know? That definitely wouldn't have worked. Not that what I did would. I probably could have done it better, but I just feel like there's good and bad ways and different things you can do to make that happen. But you just got to think it through before you go do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know one of the things that sponsors pay attention to, especially in this day and age, is social media. You know, every sponsorship that I've talked about in the show or that I've had to support the show, there is an element of social media. So that's what I want to talk about next with you. I mean, you got a strong social media following. You know, you got good engagement on there. What's your strategy, and what can other people kind of learn from what you do?
Well, first off, I mean, I'm lucky that there is social media, because I'm not going to be if basically before there was social media, I still did the same stuff, just nobody could see it. I wasn't somebody that was going to go win races and go do this or that. Like, I just was going to have fun, and people are able to see that now, and they weren't before. So that's kind of how I've carried this whole thing. You know, it's just been something that I built off of, and luckily that people have seen it, and they've really backed it. I don't remember exactly what you asked, unfortunately, because I was completely stuck on that thought. But
well,
yeah,
I can come back to my question. Actually, I want to ask something a little bit different too. Another trend I've seen in this show is where people who do well at social media, they have like a partner or a friend or somebody in their family that loves photography or videography, and that in turn has led to them producing great content, which and then leads to a stronger social media. So if you're listening to this show right now and like your buddy is just loves photography and they all geek out on it, like, you need to form a better relationship with that buddy and invite them, like pay for their hotel when you go to an event, like do something to make sure that person wants to be around you, because like in your case, you found that partner that could, basically bring out the creative, or capture the creativity. And that's a big thing in social media. But honestly, what I wanted to know more about is some of your strategies. Like, a lot of times what I mean by strategy is, how do you pick what type of content you want to share, or even that sometimes it's when you want to share it, or how you, I don't know, it could be what time of day, it could be what you actually put in your post. I don't know. What stuff do you think about when you post on social media?
Well, first off, as we've said a few times in this thing, you got to be positive. You got to keep it clean. You got to be presentable to all audiences, and somebody that all audiences can relate to or can look at and say, "Man, what a good guy," like, and not be a faker about it, but just be a genuine person. The timing of the post has changed a lot since Instagram took away the chronological order thing, and it just shows you basically what it wants to show you. And I'm still really not sure how to take that whole thing. And sometimes I post something I'm like, oh, this is going to blow up, and nobody sees it. And sometimes I post something I don't think anybody's going to care about, and it just goes crazy. So you really just don't know. And I still haven't figured out whether it's when you tag somebody, or you tag certain things, or you post that you're at a location that it changes it, or I don't even really know. But before, I tried not to post too much on weekends. I would try to post more on the weekdays whenever people were kind of maybe bored, or kind of looking for something, or missing the fact that they're not able to be at the track, or able to be at some event. Let's see, what else do I got here? Yeah, I would always post in the evenings mostly back then, because I don't feel like there was a lot of people that would look at it in the mornings. But then you got the people that are at work, and they do get bored, and they're surfing through Instagram or whatever. So that could change. But now I don't really pay attention to when I post at all. I just kind of just post, and then if Instagram likes it, they'll show you tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I always try to not post too many times, like to post maybe one a day, or maybe two a day at the most. There's only been a couple times where I posted more than that, but I try to go somewhere where I'm going to get photos, and I'll kind of save them for a time where if I don't have anything else, and try to spread it out to where you've always got something. It always looks like you're kind of living the dream, basically. Me and Ronnie Renner have talked about that a lot, actually. He's like, man, my life is just glamorous. Everybody thinks that I just have so much fun all day, and they don't see that I gotta change diapers and change oil and do all this stuff, and they don't see that stuff. Which that brings me to another thing, though. You got to show people that it's not all that. Like, you're a normal human, you know what I mean? And you still have to do things that aren't that great, not that glamorous. You just have to do it because that's what you do. It's you're a normal person. So that's one thing and one place where stories have helped. I feel like, instead of just posting, because there's a lot of things that people post on their stories that they wouldn't post on their actual Instagram. But then I look at, not to be mean or like negative, because I really like this guy, but Marvin Muscan, he'll post on his story, all he'll post is like photos that are taken by a professional photographer at a Supercross, and maybe not all he'll post, but he posts a lot of that. And you just don't really see like that Marvin's a real human being, because nobody ever sees the real side of him besides the people that are close to him. But I know he's a good dude, and I really have a lot of respect for him, but I just don't like how he does it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm just looking at another Instagram person that I'll never have anything that resembles his life. It's, if he put a picture of cleaning out his dirty swimming pool after a winter's worth of nasty stuff left in there, then it would definitely it'd be more relatable. It's like, right. Oh yeah, he's just a normal dude. He just cleaned his bathroom or whatever. It's just one of those things. But I feel like that's one thing that's really important. You just have to be a relatable person.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. This message goes out to Marvin, though. I know you listen to the show religiously because you need help with sponsorship. We don't need to see any diapers exactly, though, so feel free to make adjustments to your social media, but we don't actually need the diaper piece. Or if you do show the diaper, already have it folded up. I got kids. Already have it folded up, just so we can't see the inside. So I call him Marvy. We're pretty close too, just like me and T.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. Well, what I want to do next, I just want to ask one more quick question in this, and then I'm going to do kind of like a condensed main event. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, though, in the Heat 2 is just around something unique. I mean, is there something that you've done to kind of promote your sponsors or, bring some awareness to your sponsors that maybe is a little bit different from what you've seen other people do?
Well, I think people have kind of caught on to that whole thing, but maybe not completely, though. There's still a lot of things that I know that all of us could do better. But I feel like instead of, say, I get a new FMF pipe, right? I don't think it's the best idea just to, let's put it on the floor and take a picture of it and post FMF and tell them thanks. Like, it just doesn't really do that much good. Like, I feel like it may do good, but it just is not as good as it could be. You could use your imagination to do a lot better stuff with it than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when Dano from DVS sent me some shoes a long time ago. I put a bunch of water in my shoes. Right after I started doing shoes, I drank the water out of my shoe, and I was like, man, there's nothing that tastes better than this water. Or actually just recently, I posted a little video that there's no way that this video, if I posted it, that, oh, look at my new Fusion graphics, that it would have got any love at all. But I said something like, these new Fusion graphics are so good, and I was holding it in my hand. It was my number plate background, and I smashed the side of the bike, and I said, they basically installed themselves, and I took my hand off, and I clipped it to where I put the graphic on, obviously. And it looked so janky, and it was so horribly put together on purpose that I did it with my phone. I had my nephew that's 6 years old film it. Like, it was nothing that was meant to be something that looked legit at all. And it got like 70 or 80,000 views or something, just because I just went out of my way to do something like that nobody else does. So, I mean, plenty of people got tagged, and then who knows who saw it, and there was a lot of love behind it. So if you can use your imagination, and even it doesn't have to be believable or legit, it can be just something as goofy as you want. Like, you could do something and drink your water out of your handlebars, like drink it through the handlebar if you wanted, and be like, oh, these ODI bars are so good I could drink out of them, or whatever. You could go on for days, and I have so much fun doing that. But like I said, I don't have to train to be a pro racer, and I don't have to train to be the best. So I have more time to do things like that. Like, I work and I make a living working outside of the industry, so I don't have as much time as I probably would if I just made a lot of money from my gear company or whatever. But I've got more time than if I had to train and be on a strict regimen to do that, to be the best. But I like to use my imagination and encourage everybody else to do that too. So anything you can think of, and if you do something like that, if you do something really cool, tag me, because I want to see it.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I remember a couple of episodes ago. It's like 70. We're at like episode 74 right now. So yeah, it was like 35 episodes ago. But Erica Sachs was on here. She's a navigator for off-road racing, and she was talking about a post she did for a tire company, and she like sat inside the tire, and I mean, it's like a 42-inch tire or something. She's sitting inside it, and it's like, it looked hilarious. It was awesome, and that obviously got a lot of engagement. And I know that, not that I get a lot of engagement on social media, but when I got an MBRP pipe, I unpackaged it, and I had my kids, and they were, my kid at the time was like 2, and he's driving his little like car into the pipe, throwing it in there and looking inside it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. I'll post this up. But I think that's awesome. Stuff it's good. I mean, yeah, if you just put it on there, take a picture, like, okay, that is sweet. That is sweet still, but like, what's gonna make it stand out? What's gonna make it go viral? So that's good. I like it, man.
Exactly. You gotta be a little different.
Definitely. All right, so main event. I'm gonna condense it down to one question. And for people who have been religiously listening to the show, it's a different question than you're expecting for me to ask, because I don't normally ask this one as my one question.
Well, I hope I can answer it.
Oh, it's gonna be good. You're gonna kill it. If you could sponsor any athlete in the world, who would you choose and why?
Oh man, I thought about this earlier, and I really I didn't have a very good answer at all. But I mean, I want to say Travis, just because he's everybody loves him. You know, he's like, you can't say one bad thing about Travis. But at the same time, that guy, I've seen him wear different gloves. I've seen him wear no jersey to ride. Like, not just now, but I'm saying, like, it was 2000, 2001, something like that. I saw him show up in two different colors of gloves and no jersey. He was riding his chest protector, no jersey. He had nothing matching. Everything was completely all over the place. And I was like, Travis, why don't you wear your jersey? And he was like, oh, I gave it away to this kid the other day. Like, I don't have any more. And I was like, man, well, that's really cool. Like, I gotta love that. But you just never know. He'll grab whatever's around and he'll wear it. He probably doesn't really care, you know. He just gets whatever's closest. But if I could keep him stocked up, I would say probably Travis.
Yeah.
Honestly, you said athlete too, and at first I was like, man, what motocross rider would I sponsor? But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, athlete, that could be anybody.
Yeah.
So
could be anybody.
But I really still think I would pick Travis, because he's built such a fan base, but he's, like I said, he's such a genuine good person to be around, and he's awesome. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anybody better to sponsor than him. Quick story. Now I'm thinking about how good of a guy he is. I remember, so when they filmed Chapter 1, that video, the No Fear video, a long time ago, it was 99 or 2000. That's whenever he came out to my place. I had been riding for a few years, but I wasn't good, you know, and that's whenever I was talking about the nose wheelie thing. But he came out and rode there because Kenny Bartram was a good friend of his, and he's friends with myself and my dad. But we had a land that we'd leased, and we had some really cool jumps on it. And they wanted to come out and do some filming. So Travis had no idea who I was, whatever. He left that day and didn't even probably know my name. But I went to Vegas Supercross, and I was so excited that I had taken pictures of Travis that time that he came out. It was probably like 6 months before that he came out and filmed. But I took the pictures and I got them developed, because that was before digital cameras, you know. So I got them developed, and I brought him to Vegas Supercross. And I was so excited. I was so pumped that he was there. I was like, I got to show him these pictures. And so he won his heat race. It was the East-West shootout in 2000. He won his heat race. And I was sitting on, you know how Vegas is open-ended, but each corner, like, you can't get around the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was sitting at one corner, and I saw him on the complete other side of the stadium walk up to watch the 250 heat races. He walked up a little ways and sat down, and I told my dad, I was like, I'm gone. I'll be back. So I ran over there wide open as fast as I could, and I was so out of breath. And I was walking up the stairs, and I was probably 10 stairs away from him. And he was like, hey, he pointed at me. He was like, I know you. I was like, for real? This guy remembered me like that? And I showed him the pictures, and he was just like, he was so genuine and so cool to me whenever he didn't have to be at all. You know, it's like, thinking about that now, like, even in the place I'm in, which is nothing compared to that, I would have just been like, come on, dude, you really did that? You ran over here just for that? You're a goofball. But he completely, like, he was so cool to me. And I've seen him do that with in so many different situations that I just have a lot of respect for Travis and the way he is to his fans and the way he always has been to them. So I probably, to answer your question, I'd pick Travis.
You know, not that anybody needs more examples of how awesome Travis Pastrana is, but when I was able to interview him, it was a very tight timeline. So Jim Beaver is like, look, there's a lot going on, and there was too. He's like, I will try to get you a couple minutes. Like, you just got to be here at this time, and we're gonna make it happen. Well, they were recording a show previously, and like the time was running out, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna miss my chance. So I was standing there, like my hands are sweating and stuff, and I'd like, please, everything just work, and they were started getting up, and I was like, they're gonna miss me, like they're gonna walk right past me and go to their next thing, their next gig. And Travis turned to me and he was like, hey man, who are you? Like, what's up? And I was like, oh shoot! And I quick turned my gear on. I was like, hey, like you got a minute to talk about sponsorship? Oh yeah. And and I watched him that day. He did that to everybody. I mean, I saw him a couple other times. He was walking up to like kids and talking to them, and that's pretty cool. The other thing too is like Travis has a pretty strong social media following. I don't know, 2 point some odd million or something like that. But if you look at his post or the people who engage on there, everybody's like happy and engaged and happy. Or I said happy twice, but like super pumped about the post, and they say in all positive things. If you look at some of the other, like, let's say if it's a Hollywood actor who has more of a following, there's a lot of negativity that's built in there as well. So it's a lot of engagement, but you're like 20% of the people actually don't like you, and they're just saying rude things. Where Travis is like every single one of those engagements is like truly excited to be there and interacting with his posts. And that's a whole nother ball game there, and that's hard to measure too, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like it's kind of been the same way with my stuff, but in obviously a lot smaller scale. But I feel like all of the people that comment on my stuff or that do engage, they're just positive, or they're complimenting something, or they're just happy about life, And whenever that doesn't happen, like I read every single one, even though I don't respond to some of them, I try to respond to everybody, but I don't get to all the time. But whenever I see one that's negative, or that just somebody is mad about something or bummed out about something that I've done or that I'm doing, it's a bummer, and you got to remind yourself that there are those people out there, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it. You just have to kind of block that out and keep going. But still, it's just like, it's frustrating whenever you see something like that. You get bummed out, I just try to be as positive as I can all the time, and it's hard to keep that up whenever somebody isn't, but it's just something that you got to do. You can't let them bring you down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can't get sucked into it either, because if you get on a keyboard war, like it never really ends, and no one ever solves any problems. And otherwise, like especially if you're on one of your sites that your sponsors watch, you actually end up looking bad yourself, even if you're right. It just ends up looking bad.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. Like people get too headstrong and too determined to prove that they're right, but really it's you could be right clearly and it wouldn't even matter. It's just, what are you going to do? If somebody keeps arguing with you, you can't really fix it. There's no point in it. So if you don't got anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all, I feel like.
Right. Well, cool, man. I think it's time to wrap things up at the finish line. So I kind of want to ask you to share just one last piece of advice, just something that if people listening forgot everything else and just remember one thing, what would that one thing be?
No matter what you're doing, just have fun, enjoy it, and stay positive, like we've said 100 times. But I think just keep a good attitude and make the most of what you're doing.
Perfect, man. Couldn't agree more. Well, how do we connect with you?
Man, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, page me, fax me. I don't care. You can do whatever you want. I'll hopefully get back to you on Instagram before I'll fax you back, because I don't necessarily have a fax machine. But I
was totally about to get your fax number and send you something. I was like, do you even have one?
It's 365. Fax me.
Perfect.
I've always done a really good job until just recently, honestly. This may be a reminder from the heavens that I need to do better at answering back to people. But Right now I have 99 plus message requests on Instagram and a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't answered, but I'm just, I'm really getting bad about that. I've just been super busy doing other things, but, I try to answer everybody, and if I don't, then I'm really sorry. Just please give me time. But if Instagram's probably the one that I get on most, it would stand apart from a lot more people if it was on Facebook or on another social media outlet, Twitter or something like that. I would definitely be a lot more likely to see stuff like that. But if you get a hold of me, I'm going to try my best to get back to you. But at BQ365 on Instagram and Twitter, and then my name on Facebook. I don't have MySpace anymore, unfortunately. Actually, I think I do. I just don't know the password, but it's probably there somewhere. I might be able to go ask Tom. Tom
Right.
might tell me. I don't know.
My gosh,
But
I totally forgot about Tom and MySpace.
you
Wow.
totally forgot about it? How did you forget about that?
I
man?
know.
That was like the first social, not the first. That was like the one that got me into it all. But
Yeah.
oh man, I get so stoked. Oh, new photo comment. What's up? Check it out.
You know what?
I don't know
wonder
what
if I had. I think I actually had an account. I don't know. I'm gonna have to check it out. But,
I bet they've got an app now. I'd probably check into that and see. I'm gonna see if I
Yeah.
remember my password after I get off here. I'll
Perfect,
bring
man.
MySpace back.
It's coming back. It's gonna like pick up in the motorsports world.
Perfect.
Well, hey man, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat tonight. It's been an absolute blast. I feel like I learned a lot. I hope people listening learned a lot too. But I gotta close things out. So have fun and ride safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Make sure that you subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Next up, we have Chad Baseflug. And our last episode was actually Blair Morgan. So if you missed that one, that means you didn't subscribe. So subscribe. That way you don't miss upcoming guests. Also, head over to iTunes. Leave a rating and review. It does wonders for boosting the exposure of the show. If you have any questions or guest recommendations, shoot me an email, podcast@impactfuel.org. Make sure that you are following us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And I want you to pay particular attention to our Facebook page. That's where we go live. Next up, we actually have Sean Endel. He was originally featured on episode 9 of the show. He is coming live on May 14th. And then we're going to have Shelby Mahan coming on May 21st. So Shelby was previously on episode 28 of the show. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. And a special thanks for this show goes out to our sponsors. First off, AMSOIL. Then we have Armor Coat, Solder Weld, Bold Racing and Suspension, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. Also want to give another quick shout out to some of our product partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Stud Boy Traction, and One Stop Performance. I look forward to serving you again next week. And until then, have fun and ride safe.